Okay, so how the mechanics of this work is you want to be full build in terms of, for me, I have everything maxed completely. I have both tier 2s and the tier 3. But I'm pretty sure that you just need to have the tier 3 for every tactic, and then the game either can't give you the second tier 2 or it just doesn't prioritize it. So anyways, we've got tier 2s and tier 3s all fully maxed out on all of our tactics right now. On top of that, we have 5 red tactics. So what do you think the game does when we click this innocuous button that gives us 5 tactics? Oh, what do you know? All of a sudden we have 10 red tactics. Thanks, game! And if the screen wasn't visual pollution, sensory overload before, it definitely is now. Hello everyone, and welcome. We're going to be doing a lot of very strange and advanced things in this run, so if you're a new player, this is probably not one you want to try and follow along with. You can still look to see some of the stuff I'm doing will be helpful, but you probably don't want to copy this until you have a little bit better understanding of the game. That being said, we have the mutation combat upgrade turned off. We don't want to see too many advanced battle spaces in this run. It'll make more sense later once I start explaining things. We also have the +4 advanced battle spaces turned off as well for that same reason. We have mutation for legacy enhancement turned off because we don't want those showing up in the shop. We want more tactics to show up in the shop. This will also turn off to have higher rarities like purple and gold tactics out of the shop so we can buy things for cheaper. And then this is going to stop extra potentials from showing up in the shop, which sounds like a very strange thing to do, but there is a reason for it. And that reason is, like you saw at the preview at the start of the video, we're going for as many red tactics as we can possibly get. Whether or not we hit 10 or not will be up to some luck factors, but we'll explain that more once we get in. I'm taking electric space, or electric tactic chance to get my electric tactics right away. Then I'm also taking elite enemies, give 200 extra exchange points when perfect killing them. That one's going to be important for buying more tactics out of the shop. And then I'm inheriting Lightning Orb, Light Spear, Light Wave, Lightning Orb, Thunderbolt, and Thunderbolt Light Spear. Before the patch, I was never a fan of running 4 red tactics in your legacy. I would much rather have the tactics active right away, and then also, ever since they updated Transcendence, it hasn't been nearly as bad to put multiple red tactics on a legacy character, but this patch with the infinite refreshes on extreme difficulty, it's even easier than it was before. So now it's a lot easier to set up these 4 red tactic builds, and another reason is it's easier to get away with your character being weak early on, because we get 2 potentials right at the start if you have your entropy high enough on Extreme Zone. So my character's not going to really be that weak after this first stage, and I can get away with not having potentials. So for Lambda, we want to look for this upgrade for Heavy Strike is always good to pick up whenever you see it. The other thing you could go for as a build would be her up plus skill portals. I am going to skip this one. The invulnerability is nice to have, but it's not something we need early on. And then I will take Triple Dash. So Heavy Strike on its own isn't that great, but it will be better than her basic combos at least. When Heavy Strike starts to get really good is when you get her up plus dash potential. It activates a hidden effect for Heavy Strike, or you get the universal enhancement for attacks have more hits. That will make this Heavy Strike a lot better too. But either way, having it's better than not having it, or it's better than your other options early on. The up plus attack potentials are also pretty decent for Lambda, but they have the same issue where they need the universal for more attacks on attack moves, or more hits on attack moves, a better way to say it. And Heavy Strike ends up being better than the up plus attack long term once you have all the things you need for it. So we did pick up the lightning orbs, which will activate the... Lightning orbs will basically just trigger thunderbolts for us every time they hit. This is already going to make the clearing a lot easier, because if I hit multiple enemies at once with the orbs, they will summon a thunderbolt to each one. So if I can kind of stack enemies before they hit, I'll get a lot of AoE damage that way. And speaking of stacking enemies, this is a very easy way to do it. Just by picking up the attack on Triple Dash is another thing. If you have Triple Dash already, then this attack is actually like surprisingly effective for just being a move where you dash into enemies. It does quite a lot of damage. And then the main thing is that it just lets you group enemies together really easily. I'm even going to skip Vanguard battles. It's so important that we get as many tactics as possible, as fast as possible. Because we're going to be using a new trick in Black Market to bypass 5 red tactics, and we need to have our tactics filled out before that point. And we don't know if the Black Market is going to show up early on in the run or as late as possible in the run. It's pure luck. That is something that is just a luck part of the run that changes every time you play. Unfortunately, there's no set order for it. It's just every time you see, or every time you fight a boss and go on to the start of the next stage, you'll see either Covenant, Black Market, or Trial. They'll be in a random order every run. So next I'm going to pick up Skill Lightning. That's going to activate a red tactic that will... We're going to skip Potential here, by the way, and then hope we get... There's quite a lot of... Wow. There's quite a lot of events if you have the more powerful events turned on from Entropy rewards. There's quite a lot of events that give you like a purple tactic or something, but I got weird luck here and got all potentials out of it. And there's universal attacks for more blades. So it will make our heavy strike a lot stronger too. Usually you see like, you could see up to 4... you could see up to 4 lightning tactic chances at this point, but I'm just getting weird luck this run. Thankfully I can get the tactic from here. And then we're going to skip the potential again, get as many tactics as possible. Another reason I kind of picked Lambda for this is that, for one, I'm comfortable playing her with a really low amount of tactics, and then she also works well with Impulse Lightning to clear out rooms really quickly. Just thanks to having low-cost skill options. Okay, cool, we got Light Spears here, and then... For the attack slot, we want Flying Blades. If you're going for a more optimal version of this build, you would want Light Wave on your attack slot, and then you would inherit Light Wave Spread as well. But I'm going for a more fun version of the build. And then something I need to pay attention to as we go is what options I have this second tier upgrade for already. I'll try to go back and explain that a bit more when it becomes relevant. I mean, I guess I don't have anything really to say right now, so I'll just get it out of the way. You want to skip the second tier 2 upgrade when you're doing this, and then just get to the third option of all your tactics as fast as possible. I'm gonna have to double check on this, and hopefully that's something I can double check on this run, but I think the black market that we're taking doesn't give you double tier 2 tactics. It'll just jump to red tactics right away, as long as you have the tier 3s done. I should have activated my overdrive a lot earlier in this phase, but it's fine. Overdrive gives you invulnerability frames while it's active, so it's a good way of kind of cheesing out the perfect clears for this. I will take triple jump because it does have a hidden effect with something else we might pick up, and I don't want to spend too many refreshes. I'm saving refreshes for stuff like shops and the black market when we eventually get there. I could have looked at that covenant. There's only one covenant you really want, and that's the either 2 free shop refreshes or discounts at shops. And the problem with covenants is that like 90% of the time their downside is just unplayable. They really did not balance the downsides of Covenant very well. You might see something like ground attack reduced greatly, and you might think it's not that bad to deal with, and then you actually take it, and I don't know the exact numbers, but it feels like it's like a 90% damage reduction, somewhere around there. It's basically, you can't use moves of that type if you take that. Okay, so we want to pick up the third upgrade for lightning orbs and then just completely ignore the second one for as long as possible. Ooh, this is really lucky. Electric space times 2. So this will help out a lot for getting things done. Because I could be seeing the black market after this area, so in theory, I need to have this area, or I need to have my tactics done by the end of this area. So I'm going to be double checking things quite a lot. We don't have the tier 2 for Thunderbolts yet, so we will pick up the dodge Thunderbolts. And then, like I said before, ignore the second tier 2 of everything if you're doing this, and go straight for the tier 3s. You could just turn that off entirely in the options here, but if you're going for like a big tactic build, you're just going to make the tactic build worse by doing that. I think I also skipped the exchange space in the first area. I was probably like so busy focusing on the build and explaining things that I just didn't realize where I was in the stage. That's not a big deal though. I have a lot of refreshes saved up and some money saved up, so I can... No, I'm pretty sure I did use the shop, actually. We're getting weird luck on these rerolls, or on these events, by the way. Seeing triple Mind Unleashed is so rare. Like, seeing these in general is one of the more rare things. So seeing 3 of them at the same time is crazy. Does this really... That actually will reduce the cooldown of Orbiting Lightning Orb, so it is worth taking. It's not something that's like gonna make or break the run, but it is something that will be useful at least. I don't want to refresh too heavily on those. Though I definitely could have refreshed like once or twice without being at too much risk. But if it's there, I might as well take it. I'm trying to keep everything in this run to be, like, as consistent as possible. That way people can replicate it without having to, like, grind out runs for it. This is part of the reason why I've never really cared about... Maybe we do Vanguard again here. We don't really need the potential, so we can take the Vanguard. But yeah, there's been other ways to go past the tactic limit before, with a very specific setups, and I never really cared about them too much. But this setup, I feel like, is something that's a lot easier to do than it was before, and it's more consistent as well. Especially with the setup that I'm running here. We could go for Legacy cooldown. That's not a bad idea, honestly. Lambda multi-hits a lot in general, and having Ragna Legacy up more often for more damage and healing, and then Jhin Legacy for the freeze is fine. I'm honestly kind of curious if you could make a build with max level Jhin freeze, and then have a character like Lambda with heavy multi-hitting, who could... Sorry, I'm having, like, sensory overload from the tactics, and then I'm trying to think of what to say at the same time, and it's not working too well. But anyways, what I was thinking along the lines of, like, making a build where you multi-hit so much and have so much freeze time that you just perma-freeze an enemy. I think it might be possible. I'd have to see, though. So we have tier 3s on everything except for Light Spear, and we still need Flying Blades. So unfortunately, this room is just kind of a dud for us. We can still make use of it, but it would be more optimal to have a light room or a blade room here. So even if you're not going for, like, the black market trick that we're going for here, the tactics I've got set up right now are a pretty solid build to go for. I don't think they're as strong as the light build that I went in the last video, but I think they are very strong as well. I'll go ahead and explain those in a second, because tactics are going to get a lot more complicated later on, too. So the way that this works is that you get Lightning Orb Thunderbolt, which makes it where every time your Lightning Orbs hit an enemy, they spawn a Thunderbolt. Then you get Thunderbolt Light Spear. When Thunderbolt hits an enemy, it spawns a Light Spear. And then you get Light Spear Light Wave. When a Light Spear hits an enemy, it creates a Light Wave. So it just creates this big chain reaction of effects where your Lightning Orb hits, it does a Thunderbolt, that does a Light Spear, that does a Light Wave. Very strong combination of red tactics just right here with these three. The reason I'm able to have Light Spear Light Wave without having actual Light Wave itself is just because I have inherited it. When you inherit things, they generally only take one thing to unlock, and you can always check that in the menu here, where it says Unlock Requirements - Thunderbolt. That means if you inherit it, that's what it'll take before the red tactic is active. And then the other red tactic isn't that important because it's kind of buggy, but when an enemy is inflicted with lightning, the Lightning Impulse debuff, I wish they would specify Lightning Impulse on this stuff. But anyways, when an enemy is inflicted with Lightning Impulse, it makes a Lightning Orb. The Lightning Orbs that are generated that way will also trigger the whole chain reaction effect. Okay, so we are at the guaranteed shop before the boss fight, so we need to shop here. Of Corsair Saber is the other thing you want to pick up for the Heavy Strike build. It just unlocks a hidden effect that makes Heavy Strike deal a lot more hits. And here's our attack Flying Blade. So we need to now get... I think it was... Yes, Light Spears, we don't have the tier 3 yet. And then we'll need to pick up the tier 2 and the tier 3 for Flying Blades. I guess it doesn't really matter too much what upgrades we get for Flying Blade. I'd probably want like Whirlwind and Impact, but it doesn't really matter too much, I don't think. We do need to pick up Flying Blade Pulse as well. We can go ahead and pick that up here. We have plenty of extra refreshes, so we should be fine. And then I guess we'll have to refresh for... Oh, there we go, Flying Blade Slash. We got the tier 3 there. So now we're completely okay for tactics for this point on. I will still go for the other tactic, it's pretty cheap. But what you want to do, like I said before, is get to your tier 3 of everything as fast as possible. Here we'll go for the Thunderbolts, since the Thunderbolts are dealing a lot more damage than the Flying Blades or the Impulses will. And then we can actually start picking up tactics at this point too. I don't want to refresh tactics too much still, because I need to save refreshes for the black market whenever it shows up. Let's see if we can get the phase skip here. Yeah, my DPS isn't really... Depending on like what your standards of DPS are, this is a pretty strong build. But my standards of DPS have really changed after that last run I did with the light build and having the damage increases on it. Let's go one refresh here. I could take Firepower Barrage, it'd be a okay upgrade, but I don't really like any of these too much. Okay, I'm really happy with Lucky Shopper. That's one, if you find early on, you can take. It's not as good as the discounts for the Mine Crystal, but it is another discount. And now let's see if we got the... We did not get the black market here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip ahead to the next area. There's really nothing worth showing in this area. We've got all the setup done that we need to. We just need the black market for the rest of the run. So I will see you guys in the next area. Alright, we are back. And now it is time to use all those refreshes that we've been saving up for. Actually, we don't even have to use refreshes. Generally, it's not too hard to find what you need from black markets. I've rarely run into runs where I just blow through all my refreshes and I don't see what I need. I think the pool for black markets isn't that big. It's been a while since I looked at the list for them, though. Oh, what do you know? All of a sudden we have 10 red tactics. Thanks, game! So I'll show you guys another trick if you want to RNG manipulate stuff like this. You can make a duplicate of your save file, so before I went into the black market, I copied my save file over to a second slot. I take the slot 2 and put it back over slot 1, and then we'll just go into the black market again. If I have to cut forward to get what I need, then there will be a cut in the video. If not, we'll just go from here. Alright, I've had to reroll this a lot of times to get what I actually wanted. So now we have Flying Blade Pulse, Teleporting Flying Blade, Lightning Orb, Thunderbolt Light Spear, Thunderbolt Flying Blade, Light Spear Light Wave, Light Spear Icicle, Lightning Orb Thunderbolt, Shadow Lightning Orb, and Lightning Orb Shot. The big things we want out of this is Shadow Lightning Orb and Thunderbolt Flying Blade for this build, as well as Teleporting Flying Blade. Ideally, I get a third red here, which I might go back and redo later on for, but for now, this is fine. I don't really need Light Spear Icicle. It helps, but it's not a huge deal. Light Spear Icicle would be more important if you were going the full Light Spear build with this. So for that, you would run Light Spears on the skill slot instead of the Legacy slot, and then you would go Light Wave on the attack. That will make the Light Spear Light Wave much stronger, since this will scale off of your Light Wave tactics and the damage of your Light Spears. That, combined with Lightning Orb Thunderbolt and Shadow Lightning Orb, will generate a ton of the spears at once, but instead of focusing completely on the spears, we're focusing on generating a lot of flying blades through Thunderbolt flying blades. This build is by no means better. It's probably much worse, honestly, than doing that, but I think this will be funner to run. And if the screen wasn't visual pollution, sensory overload before, it definitely is now. I don't think we'll be able to make too much use of the flying blade stuff in these rooms, because the light spears and stuff are just going to be one-shotting everything before they even go out. But I think the Flying Blades with Flying Blade Pulse could be pretty decent in the boss fight. Now just imagine if on top of this, I can get a Covenant that increases tactic damage. Then we'll be in business. Funny enough, like, all things considered, going for 10 red tactics like this is not really that worth it compared to just using your refreshes on getting tactic damage from Black Market and Covenants. Either that, or from Covenant, you can also look for the upgrade that gives you 50% final damage every time you enter a room. That will apply to tactic damage as well. So you're getting a big boost to the tactic damage and your character's damage at the same time with that one. Whereas the tactic damage Covenant does give the tactics more damage. But with the final damage one, you're also boosting your character at the same time. Also, I think it's really funny, if you look down at the bottom left, I have so many red tactics right now that one of my tactics is stacked on top of the second row. This is the first time I've actually seen that. Last time I was, when I was doing a test run of this setup, I was one tactic away because I got Black Market early on instead of at the final stage. So I only ended up with 9 red tactics instead of 10 like I did this time. But like, if you saw my previous run, yes, I am doing very good damage right here, but I was doing way more damage last run. I think I tried making use of this on the Hibiki run, but it didn't really end up doing much because of the cooldown of it. 1 second doesn't seem like a long cooldown, but it can be when you're just getting like, I think it was 10 SP or 10 MP per tick of it. So the extra MP regen will let me just get more portals down at the start of the room, or at the start of a boss fight, if I even decide to put portals down. Honestly, at the next boss, I may just AFK and let the tactics do the work. And also, you don't quite need MP recovery and high MP like you used to with Lambda. Because if you go into overdrive, you get a bunch of MP regen. Now that room was like probably the max visual overload you can get out of the whole run. Having that many enemies just constantly spawning on top of each other and stacking up. We're getting extra lightning, or we're getting extra shadow orbs every time we apply lightning impulses to things, by the way. And then the flying blades are applying impulses for us, even if skills aren't hitting. That isn't something that's exclusive to the red tactic build. To do that, you just go lightning orb, and then you get the shadow lightning orbs. Every time you create a red orb through this, or every time you create a orb through this, it will give you your own shadow orb that follows you. Here, I suppose I should ascend tactics as much as possible, just to have the most damage. Just to have the most damage out of tactics as possible. If I'm running a 10 red tactic build, I might as well ascend the tactics. Ooh, even 50% off, that's really expensive. It's because I have shop turned up in the entropy settings. Oddly enough, turning up entropy, or turning up the shop prices in the entropy settings only affect, like, very specific things. Like, I think it affects the HP, the mixtures, and debuff removal, if I remember right, and if they haven't changed anything, which they could have. They don't ever give us good patch notes for any of the updates, so at any time they could have changed something that I completely missed. I wonder if we can even phase skip here. Nope, we can't even phase skip. That's so sad. Oh, I don't even have the ability to put multiple portals down. My portal will damage her, even though she's all the way up. She's up off screen. She's not invulnerable during this. If I had the ability to place multiple portals, I could deal enough damage while she's up there to stun her and cancel the phase. But unfortunately, this run, that's just not gonna happen. I thought the impulses from Flying Blades would be dealing way more DPS than they are. But again, my sense of DPS in this game has been completely ruined by the last video. If you haven't seen the last video that I did with Hibiki, I would highly recommend watching that, because I completely broke the game there. Even more so than what I'm doing with 10 red tactics, surprisingly enough. The 10 red tactics thing is definitely more of a gimmick than anything. Which kind of says some bad things about the game. They've honestly kind of set up these black markets and covenants and stuff. Ever since they came out, it's been just power creep. Get more damage, get more damage. Oh, I went into a wrong room. I'm gonna cut this out. I'll see you guys afterwards. But yeah, what I was saying is that black markets already had a lot of power creep in the game. If you got, like, the extra tactic damage bonus, that was already capable of, like, one-shotting Ooh, that's embarrassing. I didn't perfect clear Reki, or not Reki. I didn't perfect clear elevator non, which is like the easiest boss in the entire game. I got hit again, actually. It's partially just I'm not paying attention because I'm talking, and it's partially because the screen is hard to see, but mostly just lack of attention on my part. But anyways, yeah, like, Black Market already had a lot of power creep on it, in terms of, like, the best Black Market was always just get tactic damage, or get a bunch of HP, or get damage scaling from your HP. And now Vanguards in this new mode have made the power creep even worse. There's a lot of stuff like the 50% final damage, or the tactics damage that you can get out of the Vanguard, that make runs way more broken than Transcendence runs were. In terms of like a casual perspective, though, extreme difficulty is just miles ahead of where Transcendence was. In terms of like, it's a much better mode. It's much better designed to where you actually get benefits for playing on it. As aside from Transcendence, where the only real difference were very slight variations in bosses and just very spongy HP on bosses, if you weren't going like meta stuff. So even if the power creep issue is pretty bad now, the overall benefit from having this mode is way better than last update. I think overall it's a positive. The power creep's also only really an issue if you want to use it. If you don't want to just eat through bosses' HP like this, you don't have to by any means. So it's a good type of power creep to where it's at least just not on the characters itself. Power creep on characters itself is a whole other topic, though, considering we have DLC characters that are all pretty crazy. I don't know why I didn't avoid that. Maybe I was just out of dashes by the time it went off. I'm honestly not paying attention to my gameplay at all at this point. I am just yapping my mouth off and pressing buttons. Please go off. Okay. That was really close to dropping the run. Which I guess wouldn't have been that big of a problem. Once you beat Izanami and Reki once, there's not really much of a reason to do it again. As much as I like the new bosses that they added, Izanami especially feels like once you learn the patterns once, you're kind of just done with the boss fight. There's not really that much difficulty after that. Which I suppose is like any game. Once you have a boss's attack patterns down, you just know the attack patterns, and there's... I don't know. Even some games, you have bosses that, even if you know the patterns, there's still a pretty big execution barrier. And I think that's what this game lacks. There's really not that big of an execution barrier on any of Izanami's moves, besides maybe the purple pillar attacks. That is one I do still struggle with a little bit, even though I know like what the move is going to do. But it's not that hard to deal with. If you have triple dash, that's pretty much all you need to deal with it. I'm honestly kind of surprised that with the new difficulty and the new boss, that they didn't add some kind of attacks that bypass invulnerability frames. I was fully expecting them to, but I was also expecting this to be a difficulty mode past Transcendence. I wasn't expecting it to just replace Transcendence entirely. it would be nice if there was like a master mode where bosses had attacks where they were specifically designed to bypass iframes and be played without them. Because right now, you can take a Covenant effect to remove invulnerability frames, which I'm 90% sure also reduces your dash invulnerability as well. Dash invulnerability and actual invulnerability aren't the same thing in this game because some specific moves bypass dashes, but not invulnerability. But anyways, I'm pretty sure the Covenant effect that removes invulnerability also removes dash immunity as well. Which means that Izanami is technically impossible to beat without DPS checking and breaking her purple shield. Because there's no way you can simply outmaneuver her tornadoes without dodge frames or invincibility frames. So the game is clearly designed around spamming dodge frames. It wouldn't just work to suddenly throw like invulnerability. How would you even say that? Invulnerability bypass, I guess, is how you would say it. It wouldn't just really work to throw that in here randomly. It's something they would have to, like, rework a lot of the bosses to do. But I think it would be worth doing to give veteran players this something a lot more difficult to deal with. Because really, this game is not all that difficult once you have played enough of the game to have a good grasp of it. Which is, I think, a lot of the appeal of the game, and I can't fault them too much for going for a more casual approach. Especially because a lot of roguelikes are more hardcore too. It's something that kind of sets this game apart from other games, but I still wish there was, like, another more difficult mode that was more conventionally hard. That wouldn't let you just iframe through everything like you can in the current game. I wonder if we'll even have enough DPS to get through Izanami's attacks, or to skip them. Her purple attacks is what I mean. If you have enough DPS, you can break the shield, and then as soon as her shield breaks, she will always go into stun, even if she's in the middle of doing a move. So you can just completely cancel out her moves by DPS checking her. She should be doing her first shield now. She always goes into the shield when she's at around half health. I guess freezing her does work. So we're gonna actually... Aw, it's close. So for some reason, I don't know exactly why. If anybody knows how this mechanic works, then let me know. Because as you can see there, I am damaging the meteors, but it's taking away HP from her actual shield. I can't replicate this all the time. Lambda I can consistently replicate it on, which I think is because... Ooh. It's fine. We'll just heal back. We're gonna pop overdrive and then try and cancel out this phase. Okay, easy. That's a real easy... So, like, I mentioned before that the purple pillar phase is probably one of the hardest to dodge, even in terms of, like, mechanics, even though it's not that difficult to dodge. You can always just bypass it by going into overdrive. Your overdrive does... Actually, like, this is something, too, that if people know... I haven't specifically tested, if you get hit while in overdrive, is it still considered the same as being invulnerable in that you don't get grabbed, or do you still get grabbed by that attack? That is something I haven't tested. So, by the way, if you try to put conflicting red tactics on here, so like for example, I could put teleporting, flying blade, and the game will allow me to take... Let's refresh. I just passed it, actually. The game will allow me to take Flying Blade Pulse. These are two red tactics that are both on the attack slot. When you go to actually inherit the Evo type, it won't work, which is honestly kind of stupid. I don't understand why they're so, like... They're so inconsistent in the way they do, like, everything in this game. So this black market used to not work. This black market tactic used to not work. If you were close to max tactics or at max tactics, it just wouldn't allow you to go over 5. It would still give you red tactics that weren't technically available for your build, but it wouldn't allow you to bypass 5 like you could before. So why, if you're patching to let us go over 5, why not just go all the way and let us inherit 2 things as well? That gets rid of some of the RNG that you have to go through for getting the black market and getting all your tactics done before then, while still letting us play with the build, and letting us set up the builds a lot earlier. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you guys have ideas for what you want to see me do with this mechanic again, if there's a certain build that works well with getting 5 red tactics before and then getting some after, or just works well with this in general, let me know, and I'll maybe do some other builds with this mechanic. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.